Hello, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Banff Municipal All Candidates Forum here at the Moose Hotel. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. My name is Rob Murray. I'm excited to be your moderator for this afternoon. This event put on by the Banff and Lake Louise Hospitality Association. And to start things off, I'd like to invite Jen Porter from the BLLHA to give our land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Rob. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional territories of Treaty 7, which include the lands of the Stoney Nakoda Nations, Bears Paw, Chiniki, and Goodstoney, the three nations of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Piikani, Kainai, and Siksika, and the Tsuut'ina of the Dene people. We also recognize the unceded territories of the Ktunaxa and Secwepemc nations. These lands, known to the Indigenous peoples as the backbone of the world, have been home to the Indigenous communities for millennia, serving as places of sustenance, ceremony, trade, and travel. As a representative of the Banff and Lake Louise Hospitality Association, we understand that true sustainability in tourism must be rooted in meaningful partnership with the original stewards of these lands. I feel grateful to live and recreate in these places, and through that connection, I've learned that these lands are not merely a playground, but a living, breathing ecosystem deserving of our reverence and protection. As both a guest and a steward, I'm committed to doing my part to preserve the integrity and spirit of these lands for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. For those who are just coming in, feel free to find your seats. This is going to be a somewhat casual kind of in and out thing because we're not really going to be taking a big break for like a bathroom break or anything. So feel free to kind of come and go if you need to use the washroom or leave the room for whatever reason. It's totally no big deal. The washrooms, by the way, are located on the second level. We're on the third level. There's an elevator, there's stairs, and they're just, if you go to the bottom of the stairs and just take a right, you'll find them right there. Just a quick note about the format for this afternoon. We're going to start things off with kind of a fireside chat with the mayor. Our mayor, Corey DeMano, of course, has been acclaimed, but we definitely wanted to have her voice as part of this afternoon. So that will be led here momentarily. Following that, we will get the municipal candidates on stage, where there'll be kind of two parts to this. The first will be some pre-selected structured questions from the Banff and Lake Louise Hospitality Association. And the second part will be questions essentially from the floor or from online. Big thanks to everyone who's joining us online right now. And this will be done through Slido. So you'll see some QR codes located around the room right now. Feel free to grab your phones and scan those to access Slido. The access code, which is also posted in the Zoom chat, is 655-9783. 655-9783. So you can pose a question there, but I encourage you actually to look at the questions that have already been posed because someone might have already asked your question. If so, you can upvote that question. That slides it up and might give it a little bit more priority when we get to the 10 questions that we'll be selecting during the final part of the afternoon. Candidates have been given advance notice that there will be no electronics allowed on the stage. And I do want to mention that, unfortunately, Barb Pelham, who's running for Banff Council, has encountered a family emergency and has had to take a short break from the campaign trail. We wish her all the best resolving everything there. And yeah, let's get going here. Just also want to let you know that a recorded link will be made available after the event on social media channels, I should say. And after the forum concludes, a cash bar will be available at the back of the room to give the public a chance to mingle with the candidates. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mike Kelly, the Executive Director of the Banff Lake Louise Hospitality Association, to start our chat with Mayor DeMano.
Great, thank you, Rob. Is my mic on here? We good? All right, double check. Corey, yours is on? Check. All right, good stuff. Well, first of all, thank you again. And Rob, thank you for moderating tonight. Really appreciate it. You're kind of a staple in the BLHA forums now, so we really appreciate that. And while I got the mic, before I forget, I also want to take the opportunity to thank the BLHA team for all their efforts in putting on tonight's forum. Greatly appreciate what they do on a day-to-day basis, but also what they do to put on these community platforms. So thank you very much. So now I recognize that we have some watch parties going on. So we have this live stream, we have this streaming live. Now also recognize that there is a certain game on at 5 o'clock at the same time. I hope those people watching are paying attention and are muting the game and listening here. So, but Mayor Domano, thank you for joining us. Congratulations on your acclamation for your second term. Your continued leadership is greatly appreciated. We appreciate you taking the time here and spending some time with us. Your commitment is tremendous, and we greatly appreciate your leadership in the community. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike.
There you go.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. And thank you also for allowing me to participate. There's no guidebook for when you get acclaimed, it turns out. So I appreciate the opportunity. And just quickly on that, I just want to say that it is such an honor and a responsibility to be acclaimed. I don't take it for granted. I take it very seriously, and it's a privilege to continue to serve this community. And I look forward to listening, working, and collaborating with everyone to keep building a thriving Banff. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Corey. So this fireside chat really is an opportunity for Corey to give her reflections on Banff's progress, our priorities, partnerships, as we look forward to the next council term. So that's why we're doing this. And I think the best way to start this off is to start with a question that all of the candidates are going to start off with too, so that we're on an even playing field, so to speak. So Mayor Domano, maybe start with what guiding principles or values will shape how you make decisions as a member of council moving forward?
Thanks, Mike. Over the last 12 years on council, I've really learned about my decision-making style, and it can be categorized as such. One, vision. How does this decision align with our strategic community goals? And what I mean by that is all the way up from the Banff Park management plan to the community plan to council strategic plan to the other various environmental, transportation, housing plans that we have. And I ask myself, does this help advance our community goals? The second is data. I've learned to rely on data, expert advice, and proven best practices to help make informed decisions. The third one would be inclusion. I want to make sure that I am listening to diverse voices, that I'm hearing about different people's experiences and needs in the entire community. I'd also say that I'm collaborative. I value partnerships and teamwork, and I believe that the best decisions come when we work together. And when I say we, I mean residents, industry, and the environmental sector. And finally, above all else, I lead with integrity. I'm honest, I'm consistent, and I want you to hold me accountable.
Thank you. And you did that in about the minute we gave you. So well done. We're off to a good start. I don't think we want to get the hook here. So, and obviously we're definitely going to hold our candidates to 1 minute. So first question, we're going to talk about Parks Canada. So as we all know, Parks Canada plays an integral role in nearly, switch page, every aspect of Banff's governance and community life, from land use and transportation to housing and environmental stewardship. The town's relationships with Parks Canada is fundamental to our collective success. This partnership has evolved over time and is key to ensuring that Banff remains both a vibrant community and a protected national park. So my question for you, how would you describe the current relationship between the town of Banff and Parks Canada? And what do you see as the greatest opportunities to strengthen that partnership going forward? When differences arise, how do you envision working together through collaboration, communication, and shared priorities to achieve the best outcomes for the entire community?
Thanks. I'm glad you asked that question. I know it's been a topic during this election season, so I'm really happy to provide my perspective. Saul and I have worked to build a solid professional working relationship, and I believe the same goes for the town of Banff and Parks Canada. They also have a productive, collaborative relationship, and that can be demonstrated with a number of examples. So for starters, the rapid approval of our land use bylaw housing amendments. So they turned those around in just 2 days, and that has been the starting of just this boom of development we've seen with our housing supply, which is incredible. So we worked shoulder to shoulder on ensuring those amendments would be passed in an efficient way. The second is they waived subdivision fees. as a part of the Housing Accelerator Fund timeline. And this just helps remove financial barriers to much needed housing development. The third, this is a new one, we are working together to co-develop employee housing on Squirrel Street. And so what that means is half of the units will be for Parks Canada employees and the other half of the units will be for Town of Banff employees. So it's a real watershed moment where we are working together to address this critical need of housing in our community and being able to attract and retain talent here in Banff. Another example is we are more coordinated than ever on wildfire preparedness. We have two different agencies, a technical one and a leadership group, working together to ensure that we are aligned. As well, they gave us $150,000 for fire smart work within the town site this year, which was incredible. Another example is the collaboration we had on the new Banff Community Plan. We had a member from Parks Canada sit at that table, and they played a key role in helping to shape the vision and ultimately the plan that we have passed. And finally, another example is the 200 block of Banff Avenue. We know that's a really important initiative for the community. And I'm looking at you, Harvey Locke. And so we are wanting to come to the table with a conversation about how to make that once in a generation project the best it can be. And that could include transferring town-owned lands to build it to its full potential. Again, we've offered to have that conversation. So those are some examples of how we are working well and demonstrate our relationship. In terms of opportunities to strengthen it, new this council term, council will be meeting with the Banff Park Superintendent twice a year annually. So that'll be a good opportunity to hear what each other's work plans are, to learn about shared priorities and opportunities. That's in addition to the ongoing collaboration that we have in several different ways. There's the Intergovernmental Liaison Committee, there's a Lead Tourism for Good Steering Committee, Human Wildlife Coexistence. You guys want me to keep going? I think I've got 3 more, but you get the sense. We sit together on a lot of boards and committees, which is great. And then another piece I wanted to mention is the advocacy efforts. So myself and the town manager have gone to Ottawa 3 times in the last 4 years, meeting with various federal ministries, as well as the Environment Minister and Parks Canada national leadership. And on that note, I would also say that I have a strong working relationship with CEO Ron Hallman. And the plan there is we just continue to sustain and deepen those connections so that when opportunities arise or as problems arise, the connection is there and we can work through it together. Which leads me to the last part of your question about when differences emerge. And certainly they will. That's really natural in a place with multi-jurisdictional borders. And so when that happens, we have a foundation and we have a commitment to this really unique mandate of this community in a national park, and we share that together. And we might not always see eye to eye, but we are committed to working together to find amicable resolutions.
Great. Well, that is a great way to get into my second question around partnerships and priorities, and that's on Lead Tourism for Good. Mayor, as you know, the Lead Tourism for Good strategy was developed collaboratively by Banff and Lake Louise Tourism in partnership with the town of Banff, Parks Canada, and many local stakeholders, including the business community and residents, to ensure tourism continues to strengthen our community, support our environment, and contribute to the well-being of those who live and work here. In addition, a steering committee representing these partners continues to guide its implementation, ensuring accountability and progress over time. My question for you: what does the Lead Tourism for Good vision mean to you? Why is it important to Banff? And how can council and the community come together to champion this moving forward?
So the Lead Tourism for Good strategy helps to align Banff with being a world-class destination, as well as taking a deeper responsibility for our people, our environment, and our future. It really challenges us to lead with intention and to ensure that tourism serves the broader good, so that we are making sure that community well-being is alive and well as protecting this special place. And it also means a lot to me because 2,000 residents took part in this process and helped to develop this vision. And on that note, why it's important is because when we talk about tourism, sometimes it ends up being an us and a them, when really it's all us. Tourism is the foundation of our community, and that's why the Lead Tourism for Good strategy is so important, because it's a shared vision of how we can ensure that there's a high quality of life here for residents, that the economy remains sustainable and resilient, and that we are protecting our environment for generations to come. And when you think about it, tourism and community well-being really go hand in hand, because when we have a thriving community, there's a richer visitor experience here. And when we have a healthy economy, we're able to support residents with the services and supports that they need to make Banff livable. What was the third question?
I don't know, get my page away.
I remember. So how we're gonna champion it.
Yeah.
So council has adopted the Banff Community Plan, and it aligns seamlessly with the Lead Tourism for Good vision. So while we work on one, we're advancing the other, which is really great. We have this alignment. And then as far as the community goes, I think I've learned in my travels, especially during this campaign, is that a lot of folks aren't aware of that document. So I would just encourage people to read it, try and, ask questions about it, get a sense of what it's all about, and then have conversations. Have conversations in your networks, in your organizations, and in your businesses, and figure out how you can help contribute to it. As well, we have an amazing speaker series. And so those are opportunities to come and listen to folks that we're bringing in from around the world to tell us about where they see tourism being done really well. And we're also working toward measuring our success. And so there's a few different entry points there to stay informed and inspired, and again, to hold this whole plan accountable.
Excellent. So now we warmed you up. I got one more question, and then I'm gonna bring in Rob, and he's gonna bring some questions from the community and the audience. So my last question is around financial and community resilience. So Banff's economic model is really unlike any other in Canada. Roughly 80% of the town's municipal revenues are generated through the visitor economy, the commercial sector, and keeping residential taxes among the lowest in the province. So this model supports the services, amenities, and vibrancy that benefit both residents and visitors, but also makes Banff uniquely exposed to fluctuations in the tourism economy. Balancing fiscal responsibility with community well-being requires careful planning and leadership. My question for you is, how do you see the town's best strengthening its fiscal resilience while continuing to support residents, community priorities, and the long-term sustainability of our visitor economy?
So first, I just want to take a moment to thank the commercial sector for carrying the lion's share of our taxes. We just heard 80%, and I sincerely mean that as a thank you. So where we've done well and where we will continue to try and make progress is with higher levels of government. So we have been really good at making our case. We were granted $6.4 million with the Housing Accelerator Fund. Money we got from that is now going to the 50 Wolf Street development, which is great, as well as other housing initiatives like the accessory dwelling suites and having an e-permitting system, things of that nature. We were also successful in getting a $4.6 million provincial grant for 50 Wolf Street. So that's going to help the units be affordable, and in some cases deeply affordable. So that's great. And it also is on the heels of, as you all remember, TNU. So our apartment complex received a grant from the provincial government. And due to that, we're able to put revenues of about $300,000 a year into a community housing reserve. So one day we will be able to access that reserve for any kind of community housing initiatives that council deems appropriate. So that's a way that we are collaborating with government to strengthen our fiscal position as well as meet community needs. Another big one is partnerships. So the big one that comes to mind is the Women Nancy Powell Foundation. A highlight of this term was opening the Nancy Powell Bridge. Who was there that day? Such a joyful day in our community, really brought it together just like Nancy always did. And it was just so beautiful. And it would not have been possible without the $2 million donation from the Powell Foundation. As well, they are contributing generously $5 million to 50 Wolf Street for community space, which we know is really needed in our small community. And they also have donated $300,000 in 2025 for community programs. That's everything from the POW Pass, which helps access recreation really very low cost, all the way to home supports for seniors in the community. And so that's one example. Another partnership that comes to mind, of course, is the Watchers family. So they built our Intercept parking lot at no cost. They're moving that Banff sign, which some might say is the crowning achievement of this term. So that's amazing. And they're just getting started. They are going to bring to life a vision that turns the train station into a multimodal transportation hub. And that's going to benefit the community for decades. And so this is also how we're helping to strengthen our fiscal resilience, is with partnerships. And finally, the last one I want to talk about is diversifying our revenue streams. An example of that is visitor pay parking. Visitor pay parking is going to bring in $7.5 million this year. And that money goes toward paying 2/3 of Banff's roam requisition. It goes toward new buses. It pays for e-bike rebates to residents, and it helps give residents free local access on the roam routes. And so that's another example of how we are trying to strengthen our fiscal position, and we'll continue this strategy because the strategy is working.
Thank you, Corey. My time is up, but yours is not. Okay. Rob's going to come in here.
Thank you, Mike. Hi, Corey.
Hi, Rob. How
Good.
are you?
Yeah, excellent. So we've got about 8 minutes or so to answer a few questions from Slido. I should actually make a quick note when we get to the candidate section, and everyone's been pretty good so far about doing this, but just for Slido to please not ask questions to specific candidates. All the candidate selections for who's going to be answering each question have been kind of randomized and pre-selected. So just ask general questions that anybody could answer. I'm going to pick a few from the Slido, and we might recycle them for the candidates part as well. And again, scan the QR code, or if you're on Zoom, you can find the code and number there. So top 3 priorities for the first year of this new term, Mayor Domeno.
Thank you. So certainly delivering on the new Banff community plan will be a priority of this council. But if you're looking for specifics, I'd say the number 1 priority going forward will be looking at a human use management framework. And so right now, there's a lot of conversation in the community around over-tourism. And so that's a really subjective term. It means different things to different people. So we want to set out to figure out what issue we're trying to solve. I've heard from people that it's a people issue. I've heard it's a vehicle issue. We want to figure out what it is and then work toward some solutions. And that'll be a community process. And so that, I would say, is probably the very first one on the agenda. I'd say we are also going to continue to ensure that we are working our way out of our housing crisis. So we have taken some really concrete steps this term. And I'm really pleased to share that we are up to 429 net new units in the development hopper. And to give you a sense, the last decade, we built 405. So more housing units being built in the next 2 years than in the last decade. We also have about 200 pre-development applications in the works as well. So we could see up to 630 new housing units in the next several years. That being said, we know our shortfall is somewhere between 700 and 1,000. So it will definitely be a priority of this council to ensure that we get ourselves there. And then number 3, I would say, is we were really blessed to have a rainy summer wildfire season, but we know that the wildfire seasons are getting hotter and drier, and the conditions are proving to be more unpredictable and harder to manage. And so I think there could be a natural inclination to take a deep breath and then rest on our laurels, but we won't do that. We will ensure that we are doing everything we can to be as protected as possible. And within the new community plan, there is also an objective to look at a recovery plan and what that looks like. As you folks may remember, with the pandemic, it was really easy to turn off the lights, send everybody home, everyone works from home. But then do you remember how hard it was to turn everything back on and bring everybody back? And so that's what we want to look to do, is create that community plan of how we would come back after a wildfire, for instance.
Thank you very much. And by the way, I'm not being rude. I'm looking at the questions on Slido. So I'm not, because this next one is about active listening. I'd love to, if you could share an example that demonstrates preparation, presence, active listening, and the ability to, find consensus among your colleagues, maybe something that happened over the last 4 years that you can maybe speak to on that.
Sure. So my background's journalism. It's a natural habit of mine to listen, and I found that that has served me well in this job. And one example that comes to mind is, let's talk about the dog park. So we knew that our dog park situation was going to change. We had one where there was objects that were harmful to those little paws in the summertime, and the other one had some foxweed drama. I'm like, why are these dog parks plagued? Like, what is going on underneath the ground here? And so council thought, oh, that means we probably need a third dog park. And so we looked at one in the Marmot Crescent area, and it was swiftly met with folks saying, this is a really important part of our neighborhood, this forest that's here, and we're worried about the unintended consequences of people coming to this neighborhood, especially by car. They could be, visitors as well, and just having more pressure put on a small neighborhood. And so council listened and heard that side of it. And even though we believed we're likely in a deficit of this service of a dog park, we heard loud and clear that, hey, it's not going here. And so council stepped away from that and instead is just focusing on what we can do to try to enhance the current dog parks we have.
Fantastic. Great answer. This one comes from the Bow Valley Immigration Partnership. Permanent residents of Canada are a big population in Banff, but they can't vote in this election. Not if elected. What will you do to actively include them in decision-making over the next 4 years?
So this one is really close to my heart. My grandparents immigrated here from Italy and they built a life here. There wasn't a lot of English being spoken when they came to this country, and they worked multiple jobs while they tried to raise a family. And so I have a super, super soft spot for our foreign-born and immigrant population because I know the hope and the hardship that comes with it. And so council this term had supported a motion to advocate to Alberta municipalities, that's the lobbying group for municipalities to the provincial government, to look at permanent residents being able to vote in municipal elections only. And unfortunately, that resolution failed, but it's something that I still believe in. Permanent residents pay taxes, they work here, they contribute here, they volunteer here, their kids are being raised here, and they should have a say like everybody else. Now, as I said, unfortunately, that didn't go the way we wanted it to. So we have a new public input policy. And within that policy, it speaks to trying to basically go above and beyond to ensure that we are hearing from diverse voices and that we are thinking of innovative ways to reach these communities that might not normally be participating. And so there's going to be a real effort to ensure that all voices are being heard on big projects and programs.
That's good. Perfect. I think we got time for one more question here. This one's been upvoted a fair bit. This one has to do with how would you work with the library to enhance its role in social wellness, community resilience, and access for hospitality employees?
Okay, I love the library. And I think we've had such success with the library of things. Who's used the library things? There we go. So, I think that that's a good initiative that's working well, but we know that it can probably be expanded. And so I think this whole concept is around how folks live in smaller spaces. So they don't have space for that rice cooker. They don't have space for that saw. They don't have space for the ironing board or, whatever object it is. And so to be able to access this without having to store it is one thing. And we also know it's an affordability piece as well, that you can go and rent this for free. So I think to try and help every Banffite, in particular, the hospitality sector, it would be great if we could look at expanding that program.
Fantastic. 4 more years. Mayor Corey DeMano, everyone. Thank you so much. All right, we're just going to take a quick moment to get the candidates, invite them onto the stage, and we'll put up their signs, and we'll get things going here momentarily. For the first round, five. Okay. Yeah, for sure. Hello, hello. Welcome back. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us here at the Moose Hotel and Suites and online on Zoom. We are about to get started with the candidates running for municipal election here in Banff. Can I get a big hand for everyone who's put themselves forward? So here's how this is going to work. We're going to break this up into 3 parts, and 1 minute is going to be the magic number for everything. We're going to start out with a prepared 1-minute opening statement from each of the candidates. That will be going in reverse alphabetical order. So we'll start at the end with Leslie and work all the way back to right beside me with Michelle in that particular order. Following that is a series of 14 pre-prepared questions. Each candidate will have a minute to answer each of them, and they'll be asked to 3 candidates at a time, 2 to 3 candidates. And then finally, we'll get to the Slido questions. We're going to try to get through maybe about 10 of those. And again, those will be posed to 2 to 3 candidates each. And if you'd like to submit your questions or upvote questions that have already been asked, again, we've got QR codes around the room. The code for Slido is 6559783. That will access this particular event, and that code is also posted on Zoom right now for those who are watching online. We have Karen here in front, who is our timekeeper for today. Yellow and red cards. She's going to yellow card you, I believe, at, is it 20 seconds? Yeah, 20 seconds to go, just to give you a little fair warning. At red card is the minute mark. I'll let you finish your statement or sentence, but we'll have to put the hammer down a little bit if you keep on going there. So We're going to get things started here with the 1-minute opening statements. Please welcome Leslie Young.
Good evening, everybody. Is this working? Yep. Okay. Good evening, Rob. Thank you for being our moderator. My name is Leslie Young. That's my given name, thanks to my mother. Most of you will know me as Les. My sense of value will be fairness to both sides of the equation that keeps this town running, both the commercial, tourism, visitation aspect of things, and support for the people that make their living here as residents and those who keep the tourism business going, trying to be equitable and fair to both sides and get the best result that brings everybody together. Thank you.
Please welcome Mark Walker.
All right, thank you and good evening. Sorry about my voice. I've been doing lots of talking and not enough drinking water in the last couple of days, so it's a little hoarse. But I'm running for council because I believe we need more than just good ideas coming to the next council. We need effective decision making. Coming to council with suggestions is important and good ideas. It's important, but I don't think it's enough. I think what matters is having the judgment and discipline to test those ideas, to think critically, to listen openly, to be willing to change course when better options emerge. And the principles that guide me are honesty, decisiveness, and accountability. I believe in asking the tough questions, but in a way that leads to greater clarity and communicating complex issues in plain language, making decisions that are both transparent and timely. Banff faces some complicated challenges, which won't be solved with slogans alone.
Thanks, Mark. That's your time.
Okay.
Please welcome Brian Standish.
Thanks, Rob. Good evening. My name is Brian Standish, and the three values that will shape my decisions as a member of council are relying on my experience, demonstrating integrity, and providing strong leadership. Having served as a councillor for 3 previous terms, I have the history and experience to understand how the organization works. And one of the most important lessons I've learned is that while we don't and won't agree on every issue, it's really about working as a team to achieve our goals. Integrity is not given, it's earned. I got into politics to do something, not to be something. It's about being honest with yourself and with your colleagues. It's about having strong moral principles and doing the right thing. And most importantly, we need to show respect and to communicate transparently. My final value is leadership. The citizens of Banff are looking for leaders with positive actions. They are looking for leaders to stop pointing fingers and to start pointing the way forward. It's not just the mayor who is a leader. Every councillor needs to step up and be a leader.
Thank you, Brian. That's time. Please welcome Kaylee Ram.
Thank you. My approach to decision-making on council will continue to be shaped by a set of guiding principles. My decisions will be solution-based. I won't be satisfied with merely identifying problems. I'll focus on developing concrete, workable strategies to address them. Prudence will be a constant factor, anchored by a strong commitment to fiscal responsibility. I will ensure our budget is managed transparently and strategically to maximize value for the community. Finally, effective governance requires collaboration. I will actively seek collaborative decision-making with my fellow council members, community stakeholders, and residents. My goal will be to strike a balance between competing interests, between current needs and future generations, and between essential services and aspirational projects to ensure a thriving, equitable, and sustainable community for all.
Thank you, Kaylee. Please welcome Hugh Pettigrew.
Good afternoon, everyone. Is my mic working? Thank you. My name is Hugh Pettigrew. I moved here in 1982. I've seen many changes in Banff, including the creation of our incorporation agreement, which defined how this town would grow and be governed with. My guiding principles are fairness, responsibility, and collaboration, and check the facts. Also, in my time here, I've seen at least 5 studies on road studies, and they all say the same thing. Banff is congested. We've had these since 1976. It's time that we collect the information that we need, which is how big can we get? What's our capacity? We need some numbers. At the end, we've made some real progress since 1982. Safer crossings, better transit, and all that stuff. That's my promise to you, is that I will be the same Hugh you already know. And that's how I served, and that's how I wish and continue for my second term.
Thank you, Hugh. Please welcome Chip Over.
Thank you. I've told this story before, but it still fits. Years ago, my daughter saw me in a council meeting. Later, she said, "Mom, are you the boss?" And I said, "No, honey, I'm not the boss. I work for everyone in Banff." That's been true since 1994, and I thank you for that honor and for your trust. I bring local, provincial, and national experience. I'm known for calm, respectful leadership and as a steadying influence. Tourism drives Banff's economy, and our success depends on balancing the needs of residents and visitors. A good place to live is a good place to visit. I'm ready to improve housing and transit, support affordability, livability, and diversity, and ensure tourism, ecological integrity, and community all thrive together. Thank you.
Thank you, Chip. Please welcome Mark Ledwidge.
Good evening, everyone. I am Mark Ledwidge. My professional career was with Parks Canada, first as a park warden and manager of mountain rescue and avalanche programs. Along with my recent experience as president of the Association of Canadian Mountain Guides, I have learned and understand how critical decisions are made. I know when to act quickly and decisively, and I know when to slow down. A key factor is to consider all of the information available. As councillor, I will take a similar approach using the rules of governance. I am not naive enough to think I have all the answers. However, on several issues, I'm convinced that the time has come to act. We do not need more plans, studies, or strategies. My experience is that these are often used to kick the can down the street. We can continue to procrastinate or try some suggestions. Banff is a great place to live. Our town council must be a strong, respectful, and cohesive team. Let's make the next 4 years count.
Thank you, Mark. Next up, it is David Fullerton.
Hi, yes, for those of you who don't know me, my name is David Fullerton. Over the last 20 years, I've built a successful chiropractor practice here, which has taught me to hone my listening skills, think critically, and work collaboratively to find effective solutions. As a single parent here, I've lived the struggles of trying to find daycare in this community. My parents are seniors here now, but they once owned a tourism-based business, Jasper Park Riding Stables, which I think gives me a good understanding of both the resident and the operator perspective. Now, I'm not going to sit up here tonight and profess to you that I'm going to fix all the problems in this town, but I do want to share with you my vision, one that balances the needs of our business community with the reality of the residential experience here. Because I want to build a livable Banff for everyone. To make that happen, I need your help. If my vision aligns with yours, great. Vote for me and other members you want on your team, and let's all get to work to make that a reality here. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Please welcome Seth Enriquez.
Yes, hi, my name is Seth, and I am the priest at St. George in the Pines Anglican Church. I'm also the director of Banff Food and Friends, and I'm a renter in town. I'm a husband, I have 4 children. And so a lot of the issues that we're talking about and considering as a town, housing, livability, making a future in Banff, these are not abstract ideas for me. This is my lived experience. Also, in my capacity as a leader in town, I've had the privilege of hearing so many other people's stories, stories of struggle and resilience. And so I've given my life to serve this community in the years that I've been here. And so what I want to say to you is that though I promise you I will not have all the answers for the questions that may come today, or if we meet later, I can't promise you that, but I can prove to you that I'm a proven leader in this town, that I'm a proven bridge builder and can lead collaboratively, and that I care. I've given my life to caring and to service. And so if you resonate with what I'm sharing, I would ask you to lend me your vote, and I look forward to connecting with you later this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Ted Christensen.
I got to stand up. I've been sitting all day. This is my name. My values are honed by talking with my family, friends, and neighbors. I listen to our visitors from around the world, our community at large, business owners, administrators, and even fellow counselors. I read studies, magazines, reports, and books that help increase my understanding. I adhere to the incorporation agreement. I see Parks Canada as our best ally to preserve our privileged lifestyle in Banff by maintaining our boundary, by minding our commercial cap, and by guarding our environment. And it is a privilege to be here. Thank you for the extension.
Thanks, Ted. Grant Canning.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Grant Canning, and I'm running for re-election. And for me, there are really three important pillars that have always guided my decision making. And I've kind of approached this question in a slightly different way. First of all, I think it's really important for public input. We need, as elected officials, to listen to our community, and residents need to feel heard. But I also feel on some issues, it's really hard to find that consensus within the community. The second part is experts. I'm not an engineer. I don't know exactly where to build a bridge in the community. It's really important to listen to people who know a lot more about these topics than I do in that decision-making process. And the third part is we live in a representative democracy. We elect individuals to make decisions for us. So it's really important for people in the community to ask themselves questions like, do I trust this person? Is this person going to represent me? You know, are they going to look at things from a different perspective? Will they do their homework and educate themselves on these issues? To me, those are the important questions that I think residents are looking for in their elected officials.
Thank you, Grant. Alan Buckingham.
I'm Alan Buckingham. I've been in Banff for 20 years. I married a local and joined the Buckingham clan of canoeists, to which we've now added a 14-year-old. I see this election as a job application, just with the oddest hiring process. My guiding principles for this job align with our community plan: engaged, resonated, trusted. I chaired the Community Plan Advisory Committee and have served on the Library and Housing Corp boards. I already read council agenda packages and have often been one of the few non-staff at council meetings. I believe in listening to many voices and bringing people along in decision-making. Moving forward without the community just creates division. People trust me because of my resonated thinking. I'm a certified financial planning professional and have experience governing an organization with a budget and staff equivalent to the town of Banff. I am not coming to this job from nowhere. I know what it takes to lead and govern. These are the skills and experience you want in your next town councillor. Vote for Alan Buckingham this Saturday. Don't wait till the 20th.
Thanks, Alan. And we've reached the end of the table. It's Michelle Backhouse.
Hello, everyone. My decisions as a counselor will be grounded and guided by collaboration, communication, and care. Good governance starts with deep listening, consistent communication, which builds trust, and then it also helps bring people along this process and journey. I also see preparedness as a core value, whether that's facing the wildfire risks, housing pressures, or infrastructure challenges. I think our community deserves proactive planning and honest communication so that we have plans before a crisis hits. Equity and inclusion is what shapes my leadership. I want to ask who's benefiting, who's left behind, and how we can co-create shared opportunities. Banff might be a small town, but we can show this big world exactly what's possible. I believe Banff thrives when we work together across sectors, across cultures, and throughout all levels of government, making courageous and compassionate decisions that affect our future.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, some wonderful opening statements. We're going to get to the predetermined structure questions that were put together by our host here today, the Banff and Lake Louise Hospitality Association. So there are 14 questions total. Most will be asked to 3 candidates that have been randomized and pre-selected. There's a couple that will be asked to 2. And in fact, we're going to start off with a 2-person question here. And this one is going to be for Brian Standish and then Mark Walker. Once again, all candidates will have 1 minute to answer this question. So here it is. Governance in Banff is complex. How would you ensure your leadership remains grounded in jurisdictional realities, understanding what the town can and cannot do under the Parks Canada framework and the Municipal Government Act? Brian Standish.
Thanks, Rob. As we all know, there's 4 levels of government here in Alberta, or sorry, in Banff. We've got the National Parks Act, we've got the Municipal Government Act, the Banff Community Plan, and we have a landlord. We have to abide by those rules, considerations. Governance is very important for the town of Banff. We have to follow the rules, and unfortunately, or fortunately, we're mandated by different levels of government. So it's got its pluses and it definitely has its negatives. But I think the town of Banff is doing a great job right now, and I continue to support that moving forward.
Thank you, Brian. And Mark, how would you ensure your leadership remains grounded in jurisdictional realities?
I mean, as somebody who hasn't been on council before, I think I've got a pretty good idea already of where our boundaries lie. The places where I'm not sure, that's where I rely on my resources, right? There's some great resources within the town of Banff, some incredibly knowledgeable people that know all the ins and outs of governance and the different structures and levels of government. We have a lot of experience within our community. I've loved meeting with everybody and hearing about their different experiences as well. And I've received a lot of guidance and help from a lot of those people in the last election and this one as well. Those documents exist. They're there to be read. I've done some of that. I look forward to doing a lot more. That's what I would do.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, this job does come with a lot of reading, doesn't it? Question 2. This one will be for David Fullerton, followed by Les Young, and then Ted Christensen. So the question is, with 80% of Banff's municipal budget reliant on tourism, how would you approach financial planning and risk management to ensure stability through economic downturns? What process would you follow to make these tough trade-offs? David Fullerton.
Look, I think this question kind of speaks to a broader concept of fiscal responsibility and governance. And it's something I really want to speak to because, look, the projects and initiatives this town is doing is they're all funded largely, if not solely, by taxpayer dollars. Even when we start talking about receiving provincial and federal grants, that's still taxpayer dollars. That's your hard-earned money. And I'm not saying these projects and initiatives aren't worth it, but what I do want to say is if I'm elected to council, I will work very hard to make sure your money is being used efficiently and effectively to meet the needs of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I'm just going to ask the question again here. With 80% of Banff's municipal budget reliant on tourism, how would you approach financial planning and risk management to ensure stability during economic downturns? What process would you follow to make these tough trade-offs? Les Young.
That is a very tough question because we can have all the plans and budgets, 5 and 10-year plans and budgets down the road. And then something like COVID comes along and bang, everything is up in the air, up in smoke. So we have to be very flexible and take into consideration what's happening at that time. And I think the experience of the town administration, as well as those who have been on council before, will be the best way to take us forward.
Thank you. And finally, for Ted Christensen, how would you approach financial planning and risk management to ensure stability during economic downturns?
Thank you. Well, financial planning always is great when you got lots of money. We have lots of plans to be leaders, plans to be foremost in our endeavors, but we also have to consider what we might be cutting from the budget in order to maintain a reasonable tax rate for the citizenry.
All right, thank you. Don't get too comfortable, Ted, because you're first up for this next question as well. So this one will be for Ted Christensen, Chip Olver, and then Michelle Backhouse. So the question is, council often makes decisions on complex issues outside its members' area of expertise. How do you go about understanding these issues, seeking credible advice, and ensuring accountability, both for yourself and for administration in decision-making processes?
Thanks. Outside the numbers issues, I have hearing aids and I do have trouble in big rooms. So thank you for the patience here.
Yeah, so council often makes decisions on complex issues outside its members' areas of expertise. And how would you go about understanding those issues, seeking credible advice, and ensuring accountability, both for yourself and for administration in decision-making processes?
We've got some well-versed administrators, excellent experts in their field. There are also a number of residents in our community who have real skills and a passion for talking about them. That's where I go for my information. That's where I go to get further advice, and that's what I base my decisions on.
Thanks, Ted. Up next for this question is Chip Over.
Thank you. Yes, complex decision making. I will repeat Ted in saying that we have a lot of expertise on staff, and the team that works for the town are really dedicated and committed and bring a lot of experience. I also sometimes like to go down the rabbit hole. And by that, I mean, I start typing things in on Google and I follow that through and do readings and I search for credible sources so that I have more background information myself. I look for best practices that happened at other municipalities or other organizations to bring those to Banff. And I think the accountability comes with the success or not of the decisions that you make. And you do your very best. Everyone is doing their best with good intentions. And we hope to hit a home run every time.
Thank you, Chip. And Michelle Backhouse.
Can I get you to repeat the question real quick?
Absolutely. Council often makes decisions on complex issues outside its members' areas of expertise. How do you go about understanding these issues, seeking credible advice, and ensuring accountability, both for yourself and for administration in the decision-making process?
Okay, so first I have to say kudos to council for already setting this up for new council to make these educated decisions with stakeholders. So the Destination Stewardship Council that would be assembled is a collective of many different folks across the sector, across regions. And so we're learning from other municipal examples, but also other sector voices, aligning those so we can make sure our goals as a municipality and other players working together so that we can collaborate on some of those tactics. We'll get a suite of options from administration who, yes, are the experts, and then we could take that back to consultation. So we also heard about BLLHA, so thanks for hosting this, but also an economic impact study, which would be crucial information to bring that voice to the table and better educate our council decisions.
Thank you, Michelle. Let's move on to question 4. This one is for Grant Canning, then Alan Buckingham, and finally Seth Enriquez. So the question is, when faced with contentious issues where public opinion is divided, how do you balance evidence, community sentiment, and long-term outcomes to make principled decisions? Grant Canning.
I'll just go back to my opening statements. You know, the importance of having the public input process and everyone needing or having the opportunity to be heard in that process. I think that is absolutely essential. But to your point, we've seen this in our community. There are issues that are very divisive by its very nature, and it's really hard to come up with consensus. So that to me is where the second leg comes in, when you're listening to experts and different things like that who can help you through that process. But at the end of the day, again, as I said earlier, this is a representative democracy. We rely on 7 individuals to make these decisions for the community. And I think it's really important for those councillors to educate themselves on the issues, but perhaps more importantly, at the end of that process, to explain why. Why did they make that decision at the time? And I think that's really important for the community to understand.
Thank you, Grant. Alan Buckingham.
Thanks, Rob.
decision making and how we make decisions as groups is something I have spent so much time on and I love and find so fascinating and is super complicated. Partially because there's all that factual stuff that we talk about, but there's also a lot of heart stuff and emotion stuff that goes into it also. And so to me, as I've designed business processes for large groups, one of the things I really want to make sure always happens is that we give people the place to say their thing. So that public input Grant's talking about, making sure people feel heard. And that means that we're taking notes and we're reflecting back what we've heard. And then it also means that as we go and make our decisions, that we're demonstrating actively, verbally, why we're making trade-offs, right? Okay, so I heard this and I don't actually agree there. And because of this, I find a little bit more important, right? It's not just I'm going to make a decision and have it done. We need to be explaining stuff because that's where some of that accountability comes back is, yes, we heard you. And we might not agree this time because we think this is the greater good for all, but we've got to bring everybody along as we do it.
Thank you, Alan. And finally, this question for Seth Enriquez. Yes, I can. When faced with contentious issues where public opinion is divided, how do you balance evidence, community sentiment, and long-term outcomes to make principled decisions?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. I think if you've been a leader in any capacity in your life, you understand that leadership, at the center of it's going to be listening, is to taking advice when you don't know, especially if you're not competent in an area. So being informed, but also knowing that when you're going to make a decision, especially as a group, as a collaboration, it's impossible to please everyone. That's just not realistic. And so my commitment would be to have informed decision-making, working as a team, and then hearing opposition, even if there's disagreement, to want to try to understand. We may not agree, but can we understand each other? You may not agree with the decision that the team makes or any position that I take, but we can communicate. I can hear you. I can want to understand and work towards that. I think that's the essence of leadership, and that would be my commitment. Not that you would always agree, but you'd be not only heard, but hopefully understood. And I am committed to that.
Thank you, Seth. Question number 5. This one is for Mark Ledwidge, Brian Standish, and then finally Kaylee Ram. So the question is, the Lead Tourism for Good framework, co-led by Banff and Lake Louise Tourism, the town of Banff and Parks Canada, sets a shared vision for how tourism can strengthen our community and environment. Looking ahead, what actions should the town take to show leadership in this partnership, and how will you measure progress to ensure the framework drives real, lasting outcomes? Mark Ledwidge.
Okay, so this framework is essentially a plan, and plans are meant to be followed. So I would see the town of Banff actually taking action on that, and then having goals, that you can measure along the way, and decide whether you're actually sort of getting somewhere with this thing.
Thank you, Mark. Up next, regarding the Lead Tourism for Good framework, Brian Standish.
Thanks, Rob. In Banff, tourism is life. Our prime purpose is to welcome visitors, and that's why it is so important to come together around a shared tourism approach. And that vision starts with preserving and protecting the place we're lucky enough to call home. Environmental leadership needs to continue to be the prime focus for council. We need to continue to press forward with vision, innovation, and improve our practices in order to be a positive example of a town and national park. Check, we need to at least meet twice every year to see how we're doing, checkpoints. And moving forward, I think that's the way to go.
Okay. And on the subject of the Lead Tourism for Good framework, it is Kaylee Ram.
Sorry, Rob, do you mind just repeating the question again?
Absolutely. The Lead Tourism for Good framework, co-led by Banff and Lake Louise Tourism, the town of Banff and Parks Canada, sets a shared vision for how tourism can strengthen our community and environment. Looking ahead, what action should the town take to show leadership in this partnership, and how will you measure progress to ensure the framework drives real, lasting outcomes?
Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, already with the Lead for Tourism for Good, we have regenerative tourism that is set up. So for an example, that's visitor paid parking. So visitor paid parking, as we know, is paid from visitors, which is 98% of the fund that we have. So that funds different programs such as Wild Smart initiatives. We saved $1.4 million from taxes this year. So we didn't put that on the residents. Instead, that was paid for from visitor paid parking. The committee for Lead for Tourism for Good meets quarterly. So we do get updates as well as to what's happening. And again, similarly to everyone else, we lean in on our current collaborations. So with Parks Canada, Banff Lake Louise Tourism, and we continue doing what we're doing.
Thank you, Kaylee. All right, question number 6. This one's for Michelle Backhouse, Barb Pelham. Oh, that's right, Barb's not here. And Chip Olver. So this one will be for Michelle and Chip. So Banff exists under the National Parks Act and Incorporation Agreement. How would you demonstrate leadership that balances Banff's global visitor role with protecting residents' quality of life? Michelle.
I really appreciate this question because I don't think they're too far from each other. It's been mentioned before, but a lot of the same issues a resident is facing, a visitor is facing as well. And so if we can work together to address a safe, affordable place to stay for visitors and residents, affordable, nourishing food for both of us, I think we can start to collaborate on a lot of those common goals with the same type of tactics. So I don't think they're too far from each other and can be looked at in a much more affordable and holistic way.
Thank you, Michelle. And how would you demonstrate leadership that balances Banff's global visitor role with protecting residents' quality of life? Chip Olver.
Thank you. In my opening statement, I said what I truly believe is that a good place to live is a good place to visit. And I see our visitors and our residents as working together towards having this be a quality experience for both of them. We heard the phrase earlier, regenerative tourism. And if you haven't heard that before, because I hadn't before, Lead Tourism for Good, and it's like tourists and visitors giving back to the community and leaving it a better place than when they arrived. And I think that's a beautiful sentiment. And I like that we're working towards that. I think of Lake O'Hara having at one point rocks that you could gather up in a bag and take it out and deposit it on the trails where they were doing rehabilitation work. And if I was visiting someplace and had a chance to do that, I would love to do that, to contribute to the community I was in. So we do have a balance between residents and visitors, and I think that they can coexist and work well together towards our common goals.
Thank you, Chip. So this next question is for Alan Buckingham, Seth Enriquez, and finally, Mark Ledwidge. As a counselor, your leadership style shapes community trust. Can you share an example of how you've built consensus or managed disagreement in a complex situation? So Alan Buckingham.
Thanks, Rob. So the first thing that comes to my mind is working on the Banff Community Plan and that advisory committee. So we were a committee made up of all different folks in the community, all kinds of different representation. And you will be shocked to hear that we weren't all on the same page all the time as we developed this plan. And so as the chairperson of that group, part of my role was, okay, both shepherding the meeting and making sure we kind of got stuff done, which took a lot longer than it might have. But it was important that we heard all the voices and that people felt like they were being heard, not just like they get to talk. And then it's working through, okay, so I'm hearing this, I'm hearing this. What's the kind of solution that might work for you and you might be able to live with too? And so I feel like that whole process was me going through and saying, okay, how can we find this balance that we need as the community so that we can agree on something that we can live with and that we can move forward? And we're not all going to think is the best thing ever, but we can all live with, we can all accept, and we can all say, okay, this is the Banff we want to be.
Gerald. And then share an example of how you built consensus or managed disagreement in a complex situation. Seth Enriquez.
Yeah, thank you. As I mentioned in my opening statement, the director of Banff Food and Friends. And if you don't know the program, it's a weekly meal that's offered for free to the whole of Banff. And we average now around 300 free meals every week. And it's been a tremendously successful program, a lot of community support, Town of Banff, Power Foundation, BCF, and the list can go on. And we're grateful for that. And I say that because I remember when we were first starting out This sounds like a slam dunk, but at the beginning, there was a lot of people in that original group, a lot of angst about it. Some people said, oh, well, if this is coming from the church, we don't have the money to fund this, or people living in Banff shouldn't expect a free meal, or our infrastructure can't handle all the traffic we're going to get. And so there's a lot of issues. And I think the main strategy as a leader is to be listening and truly hearing folks' concerns, but also casting a vision that can be that's credible and people can hear it and have buy-in and suspend or bracket their concerns for a net good for the community. And I think that I have proven leadership that I am able to do that, and that's why I feel confident running for town council.
Thank you, Seth. And again, sharing an example of how you build consensus or manage disagreement in a complex situation, Mark Ledwidge.
Okay, I'll just give you an example from my previous life, I guess, near the end of my career. We were going through some pretty significant organizational changes where some people were going to win and some people were going to lose. And by lose, I mean literally losing their jobs. And so I was involved in that process. And essentially, I think it comes down to what we've heard a lot here tonight is listening to people, listening to their concerns, and try to blend it together with the information that we're giving them. And then, you know, again, realizing we're not going to please everybody, but in the end, it comes down to the greater good, whether it comes down to greater good for visitors in the town of Banff example, or whether it comes down to the organizational greater good.
Thank you, Mark. All right, question 8. We're halfway through this, this part of the question period. So this one is going to be for Kaylee Ram, Grant Canning, and Hugh Pettigrew. So Banff is very popular in summer and less visited in winter. Weekends have become busier, but visitation and overnight stays are much lower midweek, making it difficult for many of our businesses to staff consistently and making it more challenging for our workforce to keep steadily employed. What do you see as the challenges and opportunities in winter, and how can council support? Kaylee Ram.
Thank you. I love this question. So I was very fortunate in this last term that I was the alternate for Banff Lake Louise Tourism. So I've gotten to know firsthand in regards to a lot of their initiatives. The campaign, and you know, I understand there's some misinformation in regards to continuing to build summer. Currently, the winter campaign is to try to get prospective seekers, so a particular audience type that aligns with our values in Banff. So the environment, going to try different things. We're building that winter audience. In the summertime instead, it is through mitigation. So they're communicating, talking about traffic, where to park, how to get here. So it's through responsible tourism. And so with the town of Banff's role, I think it's continuing to build and secure that connection with Banff Lake Louise Tourism, as that is their job.
Thank you, Kaylee. So what do you see as the challenges and opportunities in winter, and how can council support? Grant Canning.
Thank you. I guess similar to Kaylee's perspective, I see Banff Lake Louise Tourism obviously as being as our marketing organization. So as I see this, there's two different halves to this. The marketing side of this is certainly up to be Banff Lake Louise Tourism to decide. Where I do think the town of Banff has a significant role, and this is the foundation within the community to support the initiatives that Banff Lake Louise Tourism are doing. And there's a few things specific to that. Obviously, we've talked about the Tourism for Good initiative. That is obviously a big part of this conversation, but it can even stretch beyond that. The town has a very significant role as far as like infrastructure, transportation, issues like that to get people around at different times of year. So I think it is really important for the town to provide that foundation for the efforts that Banff Lake Louise Tourism are doing.
Thank you, Grant. And then challenges and opportunities in winter, and how can council support? Hugh Pettigrew.
Well, you know, I'm a big fan of skiing, and all the resort areas are an attraction in the wintertime. I think we should always pursue advertising that. I think the work from Banff Lake Louise Tourism Association and marketing, as it was said, is important and needed. But we've got to be conscious of how far and how many we will have. At some point, we will reach some capacity questions. Right now, we are reaching those during the summer months. But I think there's opportunities, and I will support opportunities to grow the tourism in the shoulder seasons, because I believe that all the workers in town need to be able to keep employed, because if they don't save enough, it's really hard on their income when we have low tourist visitation. So yes, I will support more work, more marketing for that. But we are definitely not needing to do any more advertising for our summer months. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. Question 9 is for Leslie Young, Ted Christensen, and Kaylee Ram. So the question is, Banff has one of the lowest residential tax rates in Alberta. How would you communicate to residents the link between a strong tourism economy and fiscal health while maintaining transparency and accountability? Leslie Young.
I wasn't aware of the town of Banff and the population having such a low tax rate. This is something I would have to give a lot more thought to. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to pass a little bit on this one.
All right, thank you. So this is, again, I'll ask the question. Banff is one of the lowest residential tax rates in Alberta. How would you communicate to residents the link between a strong tourism economy and fiscal health while maintaining transparency and accountability? Ted Christensen.
The tax rates might be low, but the assessments are high. Also, for the $700,000 that it costs for our condo, I could have 5 acres somewhere else, perhaps. So there is a parity there. There is a sacrifice. Just bear that in mind. Although the tax rates, we pay them, we grumble about them. I don't know who doesn't grumble about taxes, but maybe there are some that see it as fine. That's my general comment for 1 minute.
Thank you. Thank you, Ted. And finally, for Kaylee Ram, how would you communicate to residents the link between a strong tourism economy and fiscal health while maintaining transparency and accountability?
Yeah, thank you. So we council obviously goes through a very extensive financial budget during service review. So as we know, 80% of the town's budget relies on tourism revenues. So, you know, as we found out through COVID, unfortunately, there's a huge risk scenario here. If tourism declines, residents face increased tax pressure due to the legislative inability to tax Banff's commercial sector anymore. So in regards to transparency and communication, that is something that we talk about when we're going through budget. We also have a public input policy, again, that identifies there are holes and gaps for marginalized groups or for underrepresented groups in Banff that don't typically participate. So it is ensuring through that policy and through our current process that we're communicating what the town of Banff and council is doing for budget.
Kaylee. Moving on to question 10. This one would be for Mark Walker, Seth Enriquez, and David Fullerton. So the question, given that Banff is a national park town with diverse residents, a focus on tourism as its primary economy, how would you balance promoting Banff as a global destination while making sure long-term community members feel their quality of life is also a priority? Mark Walker.
Yeah, I think we, excuse me, we all get to experience the benefits of this place being what this place is, right? We love being here. We love being surrounded by our scenery. Can you give me just the last half of that again?
Yeah, sure. How would you balance promoting Banff as a global destination while making sure long-term community members feel their quality of life is also a priority?
Yeah, so the big thing is that going into the new term, we need to look at that grander human use management strategy, right? We know that people want to keep coming here. The demand for visitation is going to keep going up. Oh man. But getting that big holistic look at how are those people coming here? When are they coming here? How are they arriving? Where are they going? Right? That information is going to allow us to implement new strategies that are going to help us manage things going into the future. Like looking at the changes that were made to Moraine Lake, right? More visitation there, even though we're having way fewer problems with things like the traffic and safety. I think that's the kind of way to look at that.
Thank you, Mark. The next, Seth Enriquez. How would you balance promoting Banff as a global destination while making sure long-term community members feel their quality of life is also a priority?
Yes, thank you. I think, as has been discussed earlier, so much of our town budget is going to be from tourism, and so we can't be blind to that fact. And I think when we talk about quality of life as residents here, quality of life is determined by what you define as human flourishing, your personal flourishing. And what I think as leaders we're going to need to communicate and understand, and as someone moving to Banff, learn to understand, is that we are a host town. That's our purpose for being here, is hosting and guiding folks to fall in love and appreciate this wonderful nature we live in. So having a realistic apprehension of what we are as a town, what we're committed to, and then defining our personal flourishing within the constraints of those realities. We have to live, I think, with hope, but grounded in the reality of what we are as a town. I think we can communicate that and have buy-in that we have a specific vision for this town, and that's going to determine, to a large extent, our personal flourishing.
Thank you, Seth.
Under a minute, nice.
And finally, how would you balance promoting Banff as a global destination while making sure long-term community members feel their quality of life is also a priority? David Fullerton.
Oh, look, I love the Lead Tourism for Good vision and the broader concept of regenerative tourism. It really excites me, because if we can embrace that as a community, to stop looking at tourists as like dollar signs that we just need to put up with because they're driving force of our economy, and actually look at it as a positive force that we can use for good. To, you know, not just that we have to protect the environment from them, but we can make the environment good using them. And that community piece, that tourism can actually be used to make our community better. Yeah, that one really excites me. To get there, it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of communication, and we all going to have to work together to make that a reality. Because to me, if we can, yeah, that makes a more livable Banff for everybody, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, David. So we've got 4 questions left here, and then we're going to go to the Slido portion. I want to remind everyone, if you'd like to submit a question, that's how to do it. There's QR codes around the room. The access code to get into Slido, again, is 655-9783, and that should be posted in the Zoom chat for people watching from home or wherever you are as well. There's an opportunity to upvote existing questions that are there, so take a look to see if your question's there, and you can upvote it. That'll slide it right to the top of the list and might give it some priority. So this next question, question 11, is for Mark Walker and Leslie Young. So the question is, when considering future municipal projects, what criteria or process would you use to ensure investments deliver measurable outcomes and value for money? Mark Walker.
Yeah, I think the criteria I would use to measure it are what's going to be, firstly, the financial the impacts. Is it going to cost residents? Is there some other form of cost recovery that this new program is going to implement? If not, if the weight is being borne by residents, then why? We need some sort of justification as to what that genuinely is going to add to our community. Measurables could be things like visitation or usage. I mean, like when we talk about town programs, we could be talking about everything from street design to transit to recreation programs. So it's a very wide scope to look at it at, but I think those are some general guidelines.
Thank you, Mark. And when considering future municipal projects, what criteria or process would you use to ensure investments deliver measurable outcomes and value for money? Leslie Young.
I think the first thing is to definitely make sure that everybody is aware of a particular project that's going to be coming up and has been put forth either by administration or council. And the Marmot Crescent Dog Park thing, I think would be a great example. I try to keep up on things like that because I have a dog and a lot of my friends have dogs. And all of a sudden there's this notice that we were going to be considering or council and administration, we're going to be considering a new dog park at Marmot Crescent. And from the people that I talked to, there was not a lot of consideration as to some of the secondary aspects of that and what some of the costs would be for that secondary aspect. Just the fact that we might have a dog park, I think a lot of people thought the presentation was not very well presented. And of course, the costs were never there.
Thank you. Question 12 is going to be for Grant Canning, David Fullerton, and then Brian Standish. So the question is, Banff has seen meaningful progress in advancing sustainable multimodal transportation. Vehicle counts over the bridge are down, and Rome Transit has become the third largest system in Alberta. What role should the town of Banff play in further improving mobility? What opportunities and challenges do you foresee, and who should be engaged to ensure continued progress? Grant Canning.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we have so much to be proud of as it relates to our transit system and the initiatives we're doing, and it's just stunning to think that our Rome transit system has over almost 2 million riders this year. Like, it's absolutely stunning when you think of the numbers that we're doing. I think it's super important that for the business community and the municipality and all of our partners to really come together on these issues. And it's the one thing that I think that our entire community really, really supports. And I'm very proud of that. And I think, we just need to continue to go down that road because, what we're doing is absolutely tremendous. And, one thing I probably would mention in there as well is this idea of this human use management strategy that we're doing, because I think that mobility piece is a really, really important part of that human use management strategy that we're trying to put together.
Grant? So what role should the town of Banff play in further improving mobility? David Fullerton.
Yeah, I think we've made some great strides and inroads with our Rome transit system, and I want to continue to champion that. I'd like to see increased frequency and routes in town. Around the whole mobility piece, yeah, we need to start looking long-term. And really, if we're going to effectively manage this, we obviously have to collaborate with parks. And we literally have to come at it as a united front and start looking long range through things like the human use management framework, or the hump, as I like to call it. Because, look, my long range vision, what I'd love to see here for mobility is car-free Banff. And that doesn't mean no cars here. That means no visitor cars entering here that don't need to be here. How we get there, that's going to take more than a minute. But I think if we all work together, I really think we can make that a reality here, because again, to me, that makes a much more livable Banff for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And finally, what role should the town of Banff play in further improving mobility? Brian Standish.
Thanks, Rob. I'm a huge supporter of Rome Transit. They've done so much in taking vehicles off the road, not just in Banff, but the whole Bow Valley. I believe the town of Banff should continue to fund, in fact, increase funding for Rome Transit, and it comes through paid parking. It's a great way to fund a transit system that is, as you mentioned, or as someone might have mentioned, one of the top 3 transit systems in Canada. So I fully support increasing not just Rome, but increasing vehicles, routes. It's a great program.
Thank you, Brian. All right, question 13. This one is for Hugh Pettigrew, Chip Olver, and Mark Ledwidge. So the question is, relationships are core to Banff's success, and we are all part of this community. How would you strengthen relationships across it, build trust, and maintain open communication between residents, Parks Canada, and the business community, especially when perspectives differ? Hugh Pettigrew.
Or maybe I don't need a mic. No, you need a mic. Yeah. I need a mic? It's the first time somebody asked me. Listen, we have to collaborate. We have to meet. We have to discuss all the issues together. We need to have a matrix of issues, and we need to see progress as we go along. We need to go back and forth and meet as often as we need to with the stakeholders. Maybe that's the wrong word. It's an old Caucasian word, and you want to use that. But what it means is everyone should be at the table represented. That's business, That's Parks Canada, that's the town, and more importantly, you all. How do we do this? We hold meetings, but I think the business sector, like the Banff Lake Louise Hotel Association, should be at the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. Next up is about strengthening relationships, building trust, and maintaining open communication with the residents, Parks Canada, and the business community. Chip over.
Thank you. We have many ways of reaching out to the community. And I want to mention our policy that we recently developed on community input. And one of the things that I loved that was said in that policy was go to where the people are. So rather than just passive ways of communicating with the town, is go to where the people are and get involvement. We obviously partner with Parks Canada and the business community in very structured ways, with meetings where we're all present at, and in unstructured ways, even when you bump into each other in the town site. And we need to keep building on all of those so that all voices are heard and are considered as part of our decision making.
Hey, Chip. And finally, the question around strengthening relationships, building trust, and maintaining open communication between residents, Parks Canada, and the business community. Mark Ledwidge.
Well, as far as strengthening the relationship, I think some of it has been discussed already by the town and Parks Canada, more frequent meetings. And, current council was talking about that this summer. But it's not just meeting and talking to each other. There's got to be a respectful relationship there where on both sides of the fence, and it is sometimes a fence, unfortunately, but on both sides of the fence, you have to respect what, where the other person is coming from. And so, for instance, repeatedly, trying to push for development outside the town is really a non-starter. And sometimes, that results in confrontational relationships. And but it comes down to talking and respecting the other person's position.
Thank you, Mark. And the final question for our pre-structured ones from the Banff and Lake Louise Hospitality Association going to Alan Buckingham, Michelle Backhouse, and finally Hugh Pettigrew. So the question is, the town has made strong progress through its housing action plan, building new units, supporting private and employer housing, and removing barriers to development. From your perspective, what additional tools, partnerships, or policy changes are needed to keep that momentum going? Alan Buckingham.
Thanks for the question, Rob. Yeah, the amount of work, as the mayor was saying, that has been done is pretty incredible. And I'd like to see us keep doing that. But I also want to make sure that as we keep making sure that we have safe, attainable, accessible, and adequate housing for people, that we're also monitoring what that balance looks like, because it is awesome that we are getting so many units in such a short period of time. And when you add so many units in such a short period of time, we need to make sure that we're not getting consequences that we're not ready for. And so I really think it's important that we are looking at what are our housing needs continually, monitor stuff. We need to make sure we're monitoring stuff. It's one of the things that is coming out of the community plan that didn't make it in is those indicators. How do we monitor what we need? And monitoring housing and how it's going, I think, is really important, because just building is not what we need in this community, but building enough so that people have that adequate housing, that is super important.
Thank you. So again, additional tools, partnerships, or policy changes needed to keep the momentum going on the housing action plan. Michelle Backhouse.
So Alan touched on a lot of really good points. I think reflecting back on our community social assessments and going through what folks are speaking to as a better quality of life, as well as checking out our housing accelerator program, which is not just putting up buildings, but it's also addressing policies and looking at other municipalities, other towns, mountain towns, tourist towns, to lead with case studies, best practices, so that we can bring that into our town. I think we are making those big leaps and bounds towards closing the gap, but we do need to monitor and also just look around to see what is that quality of life needle doing as we are providing that housing need as well.
Michelle. And finally, additional tools, partnerships, or policy changes needed to keep the momentum going on the housing action plan. Hugh Pettigrew.
So we already have a policy, and right now we got to see how this progress takes place and watch for things that may not be fitting the community standards or needs. I agree with all that we should be monitoring the results of this, whether it's the people's reactions about bigger buildings, taller buildings, and so on. We're getting some of that already, some feedback. Some of it is cautiously pessimistic on some. There's some neighbors issue that end up having some NIMBYism in it, but that's not the biggest concern. The traffic or parking issue, removing the parking ratios or requirements is going to have to be monitored. And if it appears to cause the problems that are worries are out there, I think we should act, we should review, and we should act and make some changes to policy if need be, whenever we see some errors or things that are not going as well as planned.
Thank you, Hugh. All right, some really great answers for those questions. One more time, let's hear it for our candidates here. We've got another section to go. We're a solid 10 minutes ahead of schedule, which is fantastic. Woohoo. So there's been some great questions so far submitted through Slido. Again, you can go to slido.com, scan the QR codes around the room, and submit your questions and upvote other people's questions, which will kind of push them to the top of the list here. So there's going to be 10 of these questions, and they'll be once again randomized between either 2 or 3 candidates. And this first one is going to be for Leslie Young, followed by Michelle Backhouse. So this one comes from the Bow Valley Immigration Partnership. 32.8% of Bow Valley residents, or 1 in 3, were born outside of Canada. Some face racism. How would you celebrate diversity and tackle discrimination? I'll start with Leslie Young.
I think we have to look at it as, yes, this is a great place for everybody to come visit, and a great place for everybody who has come to visit and who wants to stay. We don't pick and choose the people or their countries where they come from for a visit. So I don't think we should be doing that for the people who want to come and stay. We keep telling ourselves or trying to promote ourselves that we are one of the best national parks in Canada and possibly in the world. It's some of our promoting. And I think we can do a good job of recognizing that there are people from diverse cultures and countries who want to come here and stay, and we should welcome them.
Thank you. And again, the question around, I've lost it there. Oh no, where'd it go? Yes, racism, Michelle Backhouse.
Okay. Honestly, whether we're affected by it or not, we should be proactive in something like this. I don't know if you all know what we're celebrating this week, but it's Pride Week in Banff. And I think this is part of our inclusion. If we can start to embed this in policies, we've got a Bow Valley Immigration Partnership who has a workplace inclusion charter. Sorry, there's a lot of acronyms, but basically in that there's actionables coming from community on how we can make a difference in the workplace. And then we could start to adapt that to other nonprofits, organizations, so that we are actively moving the needle, whether it's affecting us or not, because it is. And when we're welcoming everybody here, we really need to set precedent that everyone is welcome here. So I think we need to be proactive, celebrate, shift power through representation and amplifying voices. And I think this is a great way for us to incorporate a whole section of the community plan based on Indigenous relationships. And so this is something I would absolutely see as necessary.
All right, question 2. This one's going to be for Mark Walker, followed by Alan Buckingham, and finally Brian Standish. And I'm going to go to the one. I'm actually going to combine 2 questions here because they're more or less the same, and they're some of the top voted.
Do we get 2
here.
minutes?
Sorry?
Do we get 2 minutes?
It's basically the same thing. So basically, how would you address the 2-year daycare wait list that is forcing many new parents to leave the area? Would you support town-led investment in childcare, whether through a new facility, land use, or direct funding? So Mark Walker.
Yes. Yeah. We've been through that. My daughter's 6. She went through the daycare. Luckily, we got her in. I think it was 18 months when she finally got into the daycare. More daycare space is needed. There aren't enough day homes and other places all other than the daycares that we have in town. I've heard ideas thrown around about partnerships with some places in town. I don't want to name some of those places or put them on the spot, but I think they are some potentially fantastic areas where we could look at partnering. Public-private partnerships can potentially help us solve some of our issues. Benefit both residents potentially and some visitors if we can. If that also helps pay for some of that, that'd be great. But yeah, the Bow Valley Daycare Society does some great work, and I'd love to keep supporting them or do a little bit more to support the kids that we have in our town.
Thank you, Mark. So about addressing the daycare wait list, Alan Buckingham.
Yeah, thanks. Like daycare is totally a thing, and I absolutely get it. And I was hearing something on, I think it was on one of the overheard podcasts today, that there's like only one day home in town still. And so like when my kid was going through that stage, we had 6. And so, I mean, we were picking, okay, you're over here on Tuesdays because that was free. You're over here on Thursdays. And like we had to piecemeal stuff together, but at least there were options. And so I think as a municipality, really working on how can we support people in that process of opening day homes is a great way for people who might want to take a step back from some of their work, maybe work part-time and facilitate stuff. But there's a lot of provincial rules there that aren't easy to navigate. And so what can we do as a municipality to like help people through that? A lot of people might want to do it, but aren't willing to put in the effort. And so what can we do to actually make it easier for people, individuals, to open the day homes? And same goes for that larger institutional type things. How can we help organizations that might be willing to do this walk through that process so that they're not having to put all of their effort into that?
And finally, addressing the daycare waitlist, Brian Standish.
Thanks, Rob. It's really hard to believe that the Banff Daycare Society is celebrating their 50th anniversary this year. That's multi-generational when you look at it. So kudos to the Daycare Society. In terms of town investment, I do believe that the town should invest in daycare. I'm a new grandparent of a 2-year-old, so I know exactly the struggles that my son and daughter-in-law are going through. The town has moved forward with some bylaw changes that will increase the possibility of daycares within town. But I do believe that given what we've done in the past with the Daycare Society, I believe we do have to keep investing in daycare in Banff.
Thank you, Brian. So question number 3, this one's going to be for Grant Canning, Kaylee Ram, and Ted Christensen. And again, I'm going to merge and paraphrase a few questions here because they're all kind of around the same thing. Should Banff Lake Louise Tourism's focus shift from destination marketing to destination management? And would you explore the reallocation of the current funding model for BLLT? Grant Canning.
Yes, I think that's actually a really important transition that a lot of DMOs are actually doing right now, especially in our town where marketing is obviously a very important part of it, but we also know Banff Lake Louise Tourism doesn't do marketing for the summer months, but there is some still in the winter months. But we are seeing in the industry is there's a sense of responsibility that DMOs, destination marketing organizations, do have a role to play in the management of the destinations or the communities they are in. And I think that's actually a really important transition that's happening. And I certainly hope that will continue to happen with Banff Lake Louise Tourism as well.
Thank you. So again, the question around Banff Lake Louise Tourism, destination marketing to destination management, potential shift, and looking at the funding allocation model that exists. Kaylee Ram.
Yeah, thank you. So I am certainly open to it, but ultimately Banff Lake Louise Tourism isn't, it's not a committee that is mandated or really set direction from the town of Banff. So we do have a partnership with Banff Lake Louise Tourism. I do believe similarly, again, as to what Grant said, there is already some changes happening within the destination, focusing more on getting people here in the midweek over the winter months, as opposed to in the summertime shifting to, like you said, more of a management communication. So whether that's how you're getting to Banff, where to park, traffic, etc. We do know that actually the Net Promoter Score has increased by about 5 or 6 points. So for those that don't know, that's a quick little how did we do? What was your experience like in Banff for visitors? So that did increase by 5 points, as opposed to the last 2 years when it was at a 70. It is now at a 75.
Thank you, Kaylee. And finally, the question around Banff Lake Louise tourism, Ted Christensen.
Thanks, Rob. Banff Lake Louise Tourism does a top quality job in marketing our community. I think what they need to keep doing is that, and helping us to design product, design activities for the shoulder seasons. I think if Banff Lake Louise Tourism moved into management in a more active way, there would be conflicts, and I don't see that as a role for Banff Lake Louise Tourism.
All right, this next question is going to be for Hugh Pettigrew, Seth Enriquez, and Chip Olver. And it's around access to the industrial compound. It's hard for walking and biking by Banff Avenue. Do you have any thoughts or ideas around better access to the industrial compound and a walking trail near Risky Creek? Do with that what you will. Hugh Pettigrew.
We seem to get all the good questions, but anyway, thanks for listening so long here. It's been a long evening, but we've tried different things. We've talked to CP. We've had our engineering team present some options. Unfortunately, because of cost or problems with local issues that could not be solved with CP on terms of design and the type and the clearance and all these issues, all we were stuck with is the access to the compound is probably going to be best served by Rome Transit. I don't think there's any place for people to park there either. It's busy. It's a busy compound. And so I would encourage people taking their bikes, taking the long route, but there is no solution to cross the CPR railway safely or legally at this point, and I don't see how that's going to change. We need people to travel, hopefully by vehicles that are low on emissions.
Thank you, Hugh. So the question around access to the industrial compound for Seth Enriquez.
Thank you. I'll be honest with you folks, this I think lies outside my competence. I'm not up to date on how this is possible. I'm trusting Hugh and folks that I'm seeing making faces that that's an impossible or feels like an impossible task. So I can appreciate that. And I also believe that if you have, that we can, as leaders, be tenacious and attempt to be creative and how we can approach problems that might seem insurmountable. I respect, for example, what Hugh is saying, and so I don't want to deny that. I just want to, maybe this is the hopeful first time running in town council, but I would hope that I wouldn't give up off the bat and be like, well, we just can't do it. I would hope that as a team, we could brainstorm and really try hard to see solutions that maybe we haven't thought of or maybe have given up on to revisit for the sake of not giving up on that important part of our shared life.
Thank you, Seth.
Can I say one quick thing? How about a zip line?
And finally, improved access to the industrial compound. Chip Olver.
Thank you. I was in the compound just a couple of days ago, and it is a challenge to get there because of the railway line crossing. We have updated the railway line crossing to make it easier to cross at the road intersection, but paths are very challenging because if the CPKC police are there, they're ready to write you a very expensive ticket for trespassing. It might not be quite the right name, but the Railway Act is one of the oldest pieces of legislation in Canada, and it gives the railways a great deal of control over their land, and we can't override that. We did look at a crossing over the track or under the track, and were popular land crossing is now. And it was very challenging with the lead up to go over the land that would take, to go under with the water table. CP was willing to consider it. With such strict criteria, it was hard to follow through with them. Rome Transit is going there. Bike riding is a way to get there, or carpooling.
Thank you, Chip. And this next question is going to be for David Fullerton, Mark Ledwidge, and then Leslie Young. And with our very successful and vibrant Banff Pride in the month of October, it's also a very timely question. How would you continue to protect and advocate for the queer community of Banff, inclusive spaces, education, and diverse representation? Where do you stand? So again, starting with David Fullerton.
Well, look, I'm all for inclusivity. I'm super excited that it's Banff Pride Week, and I want to participate as much as I can. I would say I'm not sure how I can promote that to make it better. I think this community already engages that pretty well. And I'm super excited to see that here, because that doesn't happen widespread in a lot of communities. So yeah, I would just continue to champion that. Thank you.
David? Same question for you, Mark Ledwidge.
Yeah, I echo what David said. I mean, we do know that there's significant discrimination, and we have to get past that. And again, talking to people is a good way to do that. Tomorrow night they're buying us beers, so that's one good way to do it. And but again, it comes down to taking a respectful approach towards other people's ideas or cultures or whatever it is. And that's the way I look at it.
Fantastic. Thank you. And finally, Leslie Young.
I think I'll go 3 for 3 with Dave and Mark. I don't think we can exclude people with other ways of life and outlooks of life. I think as an international destination where people want to come and visit and also come visit and stay, we should be inclusive of everybody.
Sorry, I'm just kind of picking and choosing here. Okay, yeah, let's go back to that. This one is going to be for Michelle Backhouse and then Mark Walker. And I'm going to ask one of the questions I asked to Mayor Domano, which is about working with the library to enhance its role in social wellness, community resilience, and access for hospitality employees. So let's start with Michelle.
If anyone was at the Biosphere or wants to watch that one on the Biosphere Forum online, I also got this question. So I'm going to keep talking about it. I love the collaboration that currently exists, and I think there's so much more opportunity. The Library of Things was mentioned, and building on that. So yes, you have access to things that you don't need to buy or store, but now maybe how to use. There's sewing and quilting and mending, and I think that's a huge part of our circular economy, and that leads into some of our nature positive policies. So I wonder how we can collaborate and use this resource center that is also a safe place in our community. So I just want to recognize that it's not just a resource center and a place to get some affordable and circular economy things. There's a lot of social support that happens there, from hygiene kits to a little free meal or a snack. I think this is a great place to start with meeting a lot of our affordability and social needs in collaboration.
And the library question for Mark Walker.
Yeah, I want to start off by saying that a lot of these questions that have been coming up from the community as well have also been asked by some of the organizations out there. For me, I've answered a lot of those questions on my website. Please go check those answers out too. For the library question, I love the library. We're there every week with my daughter. We've made use of all kinds of their programs. I love their efforts to attempt to work towards providing a living wage for all of their staff. I think that sets a great example for our town. This is just something that popped in my head when I was thinking about some of the library questions, but the library of things is great, but how about a library of skills? I think that would be cool. We all have our own unique individual skills. Why don't we try to expand that way, provide each other with the things that we're good at?
Cool. Thanks, Mark. So this next one's going to be for Brian Standish, then Alan Buckingham, then Kaylee Ram. And I'm going to ask another question I asked Mayor Domano. Permanent residents of Canada are a big population in Banff, but they can't vote. If elected, what will you do to actively include them in decision making? So Brian Standish.
I think the first thing we have to do is advocate to the provincial government. Everyone who comes here, works here, lives here, I think deserves the right to vote. Unfortunately, the Alberta government sees it differently, so I think it's advocating, pushing that thought forward, and eventually, hopefully, it'll happen.
The question around involving permanent residents and decision-making for Alan Buckingham.
Thanks. So to me, whether you are a permanent resident, a temporary foreign worker, a Canadian citizen, somebody who's here for a weekend, your opinion actually matters. And when I'm out door knocking, sitting on Bear Street, having people come talk to me, I don't actually care because everybody's voice matters. It would be great if we could get a vote because that has a different kind of weight for permanent residents, and I'm all over that advocacy. But actually just right now, whether I'm elected, when I'm elected, after I'm done on council, all of that, I'm going to be listening to everybody's voice and encouraging them to talk to other councillors, join committees, contribute in the public input sessions. Your voice always matters. And I really struggle when people are like, oh, I'm just a PR, I can't actually vote, when I'm at their door. And I'm just like, I don't care if you can vote. Tell me what you think, because that is so important.
Finally, including permanent residents in decision-making. Kaylee Ram.
Yeah, thank you. This question is really close to my heart. My partner is a permanent resident, so he cannot vote in this upcoming municipal election. So this is something that I do take personally. Already very well said in regards to this. Again, adding on to advocacy that we continue to advocate to the provincial government through Alberta municipalities, but we also, again, similarly do have a public input policy. So we have identified that these people, whether they're permanent residents or they're temporary foreign workers, they are in our community. They are the backbone, they are the workforce, and their voice and experience matters so much in Banff. So ensuring through the public input policy for all of council, and ensuring that they're at the table, they're participating, their voice is being heard, will be absolutely crucial in the next steps.
So this next question is going to go to Ted Christensen, Hugh Pettigrew, and then Grant Canning. And quite simply, how would you support residents facing the challenges of rising costs like food, rent, and housing? And what's the role of the municipality in doing so? So let's start with Ted Christensen.
To support rising costs, you have to be prepared to cut services. I also think that the town does some great work for providing, for augmenting the food considerations in the community, everything from community gardens to food rescues. And for was that rents as well? You said
food, rent, housing.
And for the rents, look at the housing projects we're putting up. Look at the Astor, look at Tinu, look at the 50 Wool Street project coming up. I think the town is doing excellent work for promoting that. And thank you. I got the yellow card.
Same question for Hugh Pettigrew.
So as you heard, we're doing quite a bit in some areas. Obviously, if we want to challenge our design standards to create some cheaper housing, that would be one option. I think it would be nice to continue to support the Food Alliance, the food rescues of the world. And we have a community that works together. We have the churches, they're doing a lot of food programs and food for friends and all these things. The town, our role is to help these folks do better, whether we help them financially or through some grants or to opening doors to allow them to operate better.
Thank you. And Grant Canning supporting food, rent, housing, and how can the municipality play a role here?
Yeah, thank you. There's quite a few thoughts that I have, so I'll try to run these really quickly. So first of all, housing is probably the biggest part of that equation. And if you're going to address the housing issue, you really need to increase supply. And I think the things that this council has done, particularly around the Housing Accelerator Fund, is going to make a significant difference in that. The second one that I'm really proud of is our community programs, particularly our FCSS program, and a huge shout out to the POW Foundation for the POW Pass and things like that that we're doing in the community. I think that's absolutely fantastic. One thing I'm particularly proud of is the free transit for locals on Rome. I think that has been a huge game changer for a lot of people in our community, and that's one initiative I'm extremely proud of. And then the last thing that I think is true, not just for this issue, but a lot of issues across the community. I think the town has a really important role to play in supporting grassroots initiatives. A lot of the things we see in this town are actually brought forward to council for support, whether it be financial or otherwise. And I really hope that those initiatives continue to come forward.
Thank you, Grant. All right, we've got two more questions left here. This next one is, and they're both going to be duo questions. So the next one is for Seth Enriquez and Chip Olver. And this one is about what approach should we take to build trust and collaboration with Indigenous nations in decision-making for Banff's future? Seth.
Yes, thank you. I think a key step for all of us, leadership or community, is to take a really honest assessment of our history and who we have been as people and who we're hoping to be, so that we can listen from a place of genuine concern, attention, value, and that's just going to be essential. So any narratives that somehow diminish what Canada as a nation and communities across this nation have done to wound our Indigenous sisters and brothers, that would have to stop yesterday. And so we'd have to be attentive, listening, really wanting to hear and care about concerns of our sisters and brothers. And then from there, then you begin a process of working together for a better future for everyone. So that would have to be, I think, essential, and we'd have to be very clear about that.
Thank you, Seth. And working with our Indigenous neighbors, Chip Olver.
Thank you. You've heard about our community plan tonight, and we do have a section in the community plan about working and expanding programming and understanding of our Indigenous neighbors. And I want to go back to understanding, because that's one of the key things we need to do municipally, but also as an individual. You know, we need to build our own knowledge of some of the challenges and many challenges that our neighbors have had. Their history in this community, in this valley, goes back for so many generations, and helping ourselves to understand that and sharing that with everyone who lives here and everyone who visits here is an important thing to do. The other day, I stopped in at the Chiniki Visitor Center, and because I was unable to be in Banff for our walk on National Truth and Reconciliation Day, and I really wanted to do something to expand my own knowledge. And if you haven't had a chance to stop there, they were very warm, they were very welcoming, and I encourage you to do so.
Thank you, Chip. And our final question, we'll start with Mark Ledwidge and then move on to David Fullerton. And I'll ask the other question I asked Mayor Domano. If elected, what are the top 3 priorities you plan to focus on in your first year? Mark Ledwidge.
Well, that's a good one. Well, I think I've told a number of people, I think revisiting the parking issue on the land use bylaw. I know it's not necessarily a popular opinion, but you know, it's a pretty permanent decision what we're making with this. And there's going to be likely some unintended consequences that I don't think we're prepared for. So that would be one of the first things. I think we need to continue with the fire smarting program. To put it in perspective, we got about $5 billion worth of assets in this town, and we're spending projects that are in the $200,000, $300,000 range. It's a pretty big disconnect right there with what we're spending and what we could be spending. And then the third one would be the housing thing, and looking at the realistic part of affordable housing. $500,000 for somebody who's making $30 an hour is not affordable housing.
And top 3 priorities in your first year, David Fullerton.
Yeah, it's tough to speak to 3 priorities in 1 minute, but look, my top priority definitely addressing affordability. And I think first off, we got to have some construction conversations in this community of what is affordable here, because until we can define that, it's hard to really make progressive action on it. My next would be definitely housing, because it's a big need in this community. I'm actually really excited about a bunch of the development that's coming down, because that's the first time that since I've been here that I've seen some reasonably progressive action towards addressing housing in this community. And lastly, my next priority would be working as a bridge builder on council, because I do feel a little disconnect in the community between not just council, but between the residents and the businesses in this town. And really, we need to work at rebuilding those bridges, because if we're going to tackle some of these big issues we have in this town, we all need to work together to find solutions that's going to work for everyone. And yeah, build a livable Banff for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone who submitted questions over Slido. There's been some really great ones. Big thanks to everyone watching online and attending here. We're done pretty early tonight. Yeah. Can we give it up for the candidates running in this municipal election? Once again, there is going to be a cash bar where you're invited to stick around. I think some of the candidates, or most of the candidates, will be sticking around to mix and mingle. If there's a question you have for them that they didn't answer, I'm sure they'd be happy to answer them here or through any of the other forums. I'm Rob Murray. Thanks for coming. Have a great night.